Are you scared?
Yeah, I am.
Well, you shouldn't be.
Why?
Because you're listening to the Blair Witch podcast.
Oh. Damn it!
Your sister set you up.
I get all mad. All right. We're back
What
to...
an intro.
I know, that was fantastic. We're back to, what is it, episode 3 now?
Yep.
Big old 3. We're going to have one of those third episode celebrations.
Because it's the last one.
It's our last episode, folks. No. So we're back, like I said, for episode 3 of the Blair Witch podcast. With our new intro idea. We'll see if it hits or misses, but it was fun while it lasted, if this is our last time.
Should we say the inspiration for it, in case people don't recognize it?
Yeah, we'll say it in this episode alone, so that the diehard fans, when we're on episode like 200, will be the only ones that know why we do it.
There's two inspirations. The song is from the Amityville Horror theme. And then the dialogue part is from Scare Tactics.
It was such a pain in the ass finding that one line.
Are you scared?
They literally say it in every episode, but in every episode there's like loud music playing over it. So I had to find a clip where they say it with like no music on top. Luckily we found it. Like season 1 of Scare Tactics.
What a great show.
Underrated.
I think people like that show. They don't like the new version because they think it's fake. Or the newer episode. Not even new, but newer.
See, I don't even think they're fake, but I can definitely see why people would think that.
I'm sure as the show went on, people were recognizing the actors that they figured it out and they just went along with it.
Well, it's like the AMA that the producer and the director said. He was like, I think people did know that they were being pranked, but they played along with it. So they didn't want to ruin the joke.
That's
so
lame.
It's not necessarily that they faked the pranks, but the reactions weren't as genuine.
Yeah, that's what happens.
You could kind of tell people knew, and like some of them in the first season too. Like they knew something was up. But anyway, this episode we're going to be talking about the movie The Clovehitch Killer, which I don't want to get into what I thought about it just now, but let's just say it was more of an obscure title we found searching on Hulu. I think it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was Hulu. We're going to talk, let's just jump into, like the last episode we did, we separately recorded our initial viewing of the trailer and recorded our reaction to it. And what, we gave it I don't have a name for it yet, but we gave it a previewing rating. And I think, let's just play it now. All right, and here we are about to watch the trailer for The Clovehitch Killer.
Forgot the name already.
I know, I had to look at it real quick. But here we go.
I can't see the screen.
You are the best young lady that he has brought home to meet us.
Also the only one.
Yeah.
Not tying exemplifies the strength of a troop or family.
How come Dad doesn't have to help with couponing?
Because your father has his own hobbies.
There's always a Polaroid.
Oh.
You know about that Clovehitch stuff, right?
10 official victims. No fingerprints, no blood. Just the Clovehitch tied to every victim's house.
I've been meaning to talk to you. You know we're made in God's image. But men like you and me, we got thoughts.
I don't think he stopped killing. I think there's more than 10 victims.
You can't control what pops into your head, right?
He has pictures.
I mean, what if a thought popped into your head right now? A bad thought.
Does that look like your
Is
father?
that the guy from American Horror Story?
Something like grabbing one
I
of
wouldn't
these
know.
tools and wham!
I think it is.
There. Awkward talk with Dad. Over.
You think your dad is Clovehitch?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Sends
Something-
chills down your spine.
Something bad.
That's gonna take into account in my review.
He's insane.
It's just my dad.
Maybe you don't know what a normal dad is like.
She's manipulating you.
Where are we going?
Almost there, bud.
Of course. Stupid Microsoft. Had to ruin our movie trailer experience.
A religious dad turned serial killer. Or is he?
We're assuming. We don't know if he's the killer or not.
I'm assuming there's some sort of twist, but I'm not sure what it could be.
I'm gonna go ahead and say he's the killer. That's my preview thought.
It seems it's going to pan out that way.
I gotta say though, it doesn't seem like a bad movie at all.
Well, you already heard that it was a good movie, so now I already think it's going to be a good movie.
Not necessarily though.
Well,
I don't remember which review I saw, the spoiler-free one, because I really don't know what happens. But I honestly don't remember if they said it was good or not. I know they said they didn't hate it.
well, it doesn't seem like any sort of supernatural type of movie, so that should make it automatically better, right?
Yeah, and it kind of looks like more of an independent
Yeah.
film, which is good in my books.
Mm-hmm.
The less Hollywood-like, the better, because then that's when it goes into the cheap jump scares and crap like that.
I'm sure there's going to be a few jump scares.
I don't know.
When he's looking through the shed at his dad's weird stuff.
I don't think so. I mean, I think this movie's above that.
Okay.
Don't laugh. How dare you? That's my opinion.
How can you tell all that just from watching that?
I'm a smart man.
All right.
Now that I said that, I've doomed myself. I'm going to be wrong.
I know.
We should come up with our pre-movie rating. What we think it's going to be.
I'd say it seems... I mean, are we going off if it's going to be scary or if it's just going to be a good movie?
We'll just do good movie.
I'll say 7.5.
Damn you.
What were you going to say?
I was thinking 7.5. I'll bump it up to an 8.
All right.
8 out of 10. High standards.
Yeah, really.
Semi-high standards. We'll see.
I feel like if you aim low... I don't know if I've ever seen a preview and I'm like, that's going to be a 10. Maybe a few.
I have.
Like
Not
what?
necessarily for horror movies, though, so I don't want to list them, but I don't know. There's been some movie trailers that have been like, you know what? Yeah, that looks like it's going to be fantastic. And then it was.
Superhero movies?
No, not necessarily. I'm kind of tired of those. That's just going to be a bummer to some of my friends, but it's okay.
Well,
all right. The next time you hear our voices will be the actual podcast after viewing the movie. Yeah. So the Clovehitch Killer, which came out in 2018, directed by Duncan Skiles, with you know who he was, but Dylan McDermott.
yeah, he was the guy from American Horror Story. I knew I recognized him. He just looks older and more like a dad.
Maybe that's where I recognized him from and just didn't realize it. But he's the only one I really recognized. I don't think I knew anybody else from the movie,
Yeah, I didn't.
which is always good. I know you and I both like that.
And even he was disguised enough just because he looks so different that it wasn't distracting
Yeah.
that I've seen him before.
So let's just jump to right now. Or let's right now jump to our viewing of the trailer and what scores we gave it before watching the actual movie. And now we're back. So we both pretty much gave it fairly high reviews or fairly high ratings from the start. Well, I want to start with, do you think the movie lived up to your rating without getting into like spoilers or anything yet?
I think it did. I think it had a lot of things going for it that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
There were some cliche parts of the movie that, I mean, I didn't necessarily like, but I'm not surprised they were there. There were some twists. There was more than one twist in the movie that I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I like the character development for the most part. And I like the connections that the movie had to real life events. It was like, I don't know if it was, they officially mentioned that it was supposed to be connected to real life things, but there were definitely similarities that you can't deny.
I can't remember either if they ever mentioned it. Only afterwards did I kind of find out. I know you were trying to persuade me and I didn't believe you.
Yeah.
But I was probably just too tired to think.
We watched it last night.
Yeah. I think same. I think as of right now, before actually getting into it with you, my rating is probably the same at an 8.10. I mean, 8 out of 10.
8.10.
It's a very specific rating. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think most of the movie, it didn't really do anything too, like anything crazy or anything super creative. I did like the perspective of the movie. Like, I'll just say right now, the main character is the son, which you kind of get from the trailers. So usually these kinds of movies don't really follow that kind of character. They'll follow just some random person that's not necessarily connected to anything. So I liked that. That was a little different. And then there was a couple twists, and like you said, they weren't really what I was expecting for a twist. They kind of set it up where you think there's going to be like a very cliche twist, and it kind of takes a different turn.
Mm-hmm.
Where the twist isn't necessarily like, what the hell? Like, how? But it was more of just like, oh, okay. That's interesting. Like, I think most of the movie was pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice having a different perspective. I like how, like, it's okay for, in my eyes, having a cliche kind of plot, but having a different perspective on it, maybe. So I did like that. I guess you want to talk about some things that you liked, maybe still not getting into spoilers. Like, if you were going to tell somebody...
It's too hard to talk without talking about the spoiler.
Well, imagine you're talking to somebody that wants to see it, and you're trying to get them to go see it, but you don't want to ruin it for them. Like, what would you tell them? Like, what are the top 2 things, maybe?
The dad, who you assume is the Clovehitch Killer, he had that typical... He seemed like he was a nice, wholesome guy, but you could tell something was a little off with him in certain scenes. I think he also just kind of has a look that... It's like he has piercing eyes that give people that kind of menacing appearance sometimes. It was all set up in the way that he was the leader of the Boy Scout troop. He was really religious. He would go to church with his family. People in the community really liked him. So he had everything going for him that would give him this wholesome character.
And you'd give that as a reason to go and watch this movie?
Well, I just think like his character was, I don't know, I guess like developed well.
Okay.
Because he's supposed to be, though he's not the main character because the son is, but he's obviously a really important part of the movie.
Yeah, I think I would say similar. I think one of the key points for me was definitely the dad. He was very, like, he definitely fit a dad stereotype. Because my dad was, I mean, all like the religious stuff. My dad was like a Boy Scout leader, and he kind of said corny things like this dad does. Like, you could definitely tell he's a dad. Like, he felt like an actual person and not somebody trying too hard to play a dad in a movie. And I really liked his relationship with his son. So if you haven't gotten this already, the whole movie is about the son thinking that his dad is this notorious serial killer in the area. He finds a couple clues and he gets suspicious.
Who
But,
went? Well, the serial killer went dormant for like 10 years.
Yeah. The son, I won't get into how and what yet, but the son is led to believe that his dad might be this serial killer. He's not sure, though. So just that dynamic there I thought was done really well. And I thought both the son and the dad acted their parts very well.
Mm-hmm.
Just all their interactions, I could just really feel. I could feel so much tension without them actually like being too obvious with it. Because obviously you follow the perspective of the son, so you find things out as he finds them out. And knowing the information that he knows going into some of the scenes where he has to talk to his dad, it's like the scene where he's talking to his dad and like doesn't necessarily have tension in it. Like the dad doesn't necessarily do something to create the tension. It's
In
just,
the woods? What are you talking about?
No, just all the other scenes before that,
Mm.
like where they're talking in the shed and stuff like that. The tension is caused by what you as the audience know and what the son knows. But it's not like the dad said something necessarily to cause the tension. It was really clever, I thought, because all the things that he talks to his son about are things that dad would talk to his son about, but it's just made really creepy knowing what you know.
Yeah, when
during
he's.
the movie,
Can we talk about what he talked about? Can we talk about spoilers?
Yeah, I guess we can get into spoilers now. So just a warning to everybody that wants to go see this movie. I think you should definitely check it out. If you really want to, just obviously pause here and come back to this time. We're going to be talking about spoilers now.
So how should we start it now?
Yeah.
How though? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, it seemed like you were going to say something.
Well, I was just saying, should we the part you're talking about when he's talking to his son in the shed?
Okay, so the son was obviously already suspicious before they have this talk in the shed. You don't really know too much about the dad yet, but the kid steals his truck to go meet a girl in the middle of the night, and the girl finds some like crumpled up photo of like some naked chick like tied up and being choked with a gag in her mouth, and obviously she freaks out and is like, oh, I can't believe you're into this sick crap. And the son, who obviously knows it's not his, but he doesn't want to reveal that it's his dad's truck and he stole it, but he's just like, it's not my picture. So to find out more about it, he goes into his dad's shed, which is always locked, and his dad always goes into it, but the kid's obviously never seen anything in the shed. Breaks into the shed, or he doesn't necessarily break in, I guess he knows the combination.
Yeah, somehow he knew it.
Yeah, that was interesting. And he finds like a floorboard that's kind of loose, and he opens it and takes this cardboard box out, and it's got all these like BDSM magazines and things like that and bondage things, and he sees a picture of like an actual murdered woman, and the dad, or what is it? Oh, he's doing research on this woman because there's a name on it that said Nora, so he sneaks out to the family computer, which I thought was interesting. Because like that's totally something that a family like that would have. It's just like a family laptop in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking this stuff up about the woman, and his mom catches him and thinks that he's looking at porn. And because they're such a like big religious family, she like freaks out and makes the dad have, you know, quote unquote the talk with the son. So the dad brings him into the shed, and you're kind of as the audience thinking, oh, it's in the shed, so maybe the dad knows something, but it has the cover of, oh, the dad's just having a father-son talk. And the whole time, the dad doesn't talk about the kid going to the shed at all, so we just assume he doesn't know. But he has the talk about, oh, we're all made in God's image. We all have bad thoughts, kind of like, this is what I'm talking about. That's a normal dad talk. Like, if you just listen to the words that he says in the talk, you're assuming he's talking about the porn that he thinks the kid was watching. But there's obviously the subtext of, if he is the killer, he's talking about the killings and the wanting to kill women and tie them up and stuff.
Yeah, because he talked about, oh, we all have fantasies, but we don't act on them.
Yeah.
It's okay to think about stuff, but you'd never do it in real life.
There's just constantly this double meaning, this double context, which I just think is brilliant. Like, I love that kind of stuff. It's so cleverly done. Because the dad, later we find out that the dad does know that the kid broke in to the shed. But during this one conversation, we don't know that yet as an audience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where all that tension is from, which I just think is amazing. I love that scene so much. And he's like, doesn't he say something like if you just have a thought pop in your head to just grab this axe and hit your dad with it, and he like swipes the axe in front of the kid's face real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid, like, you could see on his face that he's so uncomfortable because he knows all this stuff. And it's kind of like, when you realize that dad did know about it after viewing the movie, it gives it even more of a creepier context. Like, the dad's really just messing with him and, like, kind of threatening him in a subtle way. Did you feel the same way, like, watching that scene?
Yeah, no, I felt that way too. And I think the son played that kind of awkward teen who's coming into himself. He has a crush on a girl, and you can tell he's like, he likes her, but he's uncomfortable. Just like his whole character, I think, worked well. And sometimes when you get that kind of like awkward teenager in a movie, it's so, I don't know, it just doesn't work well. But I think he played that really well, of being like uncomfortable around his dad, uncomfortable around girls, and how his friends started this rumor that he was a pervert who was into weird stuff, and that made him super uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that was done well.
Yeah, I don't think it was overdone at all.
No, like that's a really believable person that he portrayed.
Yeah, like a lot of people who play that teenager live in like the uncomfortable moments, like you were saying, talking to a girl. I feel like it's so overdone, like overacted, just for the audience's sake. But yeah, all the emotions are so subtle in this movie, like something someone in real life would do. They kind of just like bottle things up, and you can see it come out a little bit, like when he singles out that girl that he was in the truck with in the beginning. Like he tries to talk her out of telling everybody about the picture she saw, but he's not like freaking out. He just says it how a normal kid would say it, and he just bottles it up, and you can see the emotion and feel it, which I definitely like a lot about this movie. I feel that with all of the characters. It's just like everyone shows enough emotion as they should for someone in those situations.
Should we talk about the first twist that happened?
Yeah, we can jump to the twist.
Well, so after the whole discovery in the shed, then the kid goes into the crawl space under the house.
Yeah, they find a blueprint
that
the dad drew underneath that little area in the shed with like a full schematic of like some torture dungeon or something like that. And you find out that the kid recognizes it as, oh, maybe this is the basement. So yeah, you were saying like he goes into the crawl space.
Yeah, and then he finds more of those creepy magazines. He finds a bunch of licenses from murdered women. What else did he find down there? Stuff in that box. Just weird
like
stuff.
Ropes and
yeah.
I think he found some gags and.
So at that point, he basically knows, okay, it's my dad. He found Nora's license in that box.
Yep.
So he freaks out, obviously, and then him and his dad shortly after go camping in the woods.
Yeah, the kid comes out of the crawl space and goes back to bed, and then his dad wakes him up like literally the next morning saying, we're going camping, even though the kid's supposed to meet with this other girl who's investigating too.
Yeah, and that's the scene from the trailer when they're walking in the woods and the dad's behind him holding the rifle.
Yeah, and you're like, the second he wakes him up, you're like, oh, he's got to know.
Yeah.
Like, what are the odds he's doing all this now?
Yeah, so then the dad knew right away that he went into the crawl space and he saw stuff down there. And I was really curious about how that was going to play out, that scene, because the kid knew everything, basically, his son. So instead of just admitting, it's me, you can't tell anybody or something, the dad basically says that his brother, who had been in a car accident 10 years ago, who's basically a vegetable at this point, he was really the killer, and he collected all this stuff for his brother and hid it away so nobody could find it. And he didn't want to hurt his family by revealing it was his brother. And at first I'm like, maybe that's true.
Yeah.
But then there was like an hour left of the movie, so I was like, that can't be right.
That's what I loved about this movie, is that even like a twist like that. It's so in character for like a serial killer like that. Because
Yeah,
they're
very
compulsive
manipulative.
liars and manipulative. And he weaved this whole story together, and it was like convincing enough that even us as the audience was like, oh, huh, yeah, that could be true. And I want to say real quick, I love the scene where he's like following his son in the woods with the rifle. I wrote that down in my notes. Like the shot composition, I thought was like brilliant. Like it really gave you that predatory kind of feeling. Like they kept cutting back and forth to you. The camera's like behind the dad, and the camera's like underneath the gun a little bit, but you can't see his whole body. And then you see the son walking, and it's like framed where he's underneath the gun a little bit. And it's like you definitely get that feeling of the dad knows what's up, and he's about to like do something to his son.
Think of how evil it is to blame everything you've done, murdering all these women, on your brother who can't.
Your handicapped brother.
Yeah, who can't defend himself.
Yeah. That just goes to show
That's
you.
so
like,
evil.
People like. So, long story short, the dad is the killer. We find that out like 100% towards the end of the movie. It is him. But you kind of know that up until this point, but then when the dad talks about his brother in the car accident, was like his brother got in a car accident and that's how he got paralyzed and mute. And he says, "Oh, it was attempted suicide because he couldn't live with the murders," and like he comes at it from a very sympathetic point of view, which is like classic serial killer. Tell a sympathetic story so people feel bad for you, and then you can manipulate them. Like
and of course the son who loves his dad goes along with it. He's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We have to either turn in the evidence or just burn it and get rid of it. So of course they burn it because I'm sure the dad was like, we're not turning this in.
Right. I think the kid kind of knew that because he still had some doubt. So I think in the back of his mind,
He wasn't sure.
I think he came up with the burning it idea. It's like a last resort. Mm-hmm. Like he just thought of it on the spot. I have a feeling he was like, you have to bring this to the police. And then I think he kind of realized when he said that shit, if it really is my dad, there's no way he's bringing it to the police. Mm-hmm. So then he was like, or burn it. Because he probably thought, oh yeah, that's probably the better option. Like it'll turn out better for me too.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how right after you see them burning all of the evidence, all the licenses and the weird magazines, right next what happens is the kid goes off to that Boy Scout camp. The dad convinces the mom and his other daughter to go away for a few weeks to visit their grandma or something. And then just by that, when they're at the dinner table after the son had already left, and he's like, you should go visit your mom for a week or two. I'll come up later. You know that he wants to be alone in order to. I guess when he burned all that stuff, I thought he kind of got all those urges again, just seeing all that stuff.
Yeah, because not that I do a ton of research into serial killers, but the research I have done shows that a lot of serial killers take the photos as like mementos so they can look at them and relive whatever they did. And I think that's why he had them down there. So when he wants, he can just go down there and relive it, get the same feelings without actually having to go out and do that stuff. So yeah, definitely after he burned all those photos, it's like the second he told his wife and kid to go away for like a week or two, you're like, oh shit, like shit's about to go down.
But it was interesting how before he even tried to kill anybody, he tried to recreate the pictures. He put on a wig, he put on a dress, and took some Polaroids of him.
Yeah,
because I don't think it's like he didn't want to kill people because he probably knew what it was going to do to his family.
I don't even necessarily think he cared about his family.
Then why was he doing that?
I think it was more of, it's just less of a hassle. Like he hasn't been doing it in a long time, so he's rusty. So he probably just wants to see if he can get the same feeling out of pictures of himself in those positions. So like he doesn't actually have to go through all the work of doing all that stuff. Because if you think about it, what he was going to do to his son at the end, and we'll get to that in a minute, kind of shows me he really just doesn't care about his family deep down. Like it's all just a cover.
Yeah, I guess maybe because he was complaining about his back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that was one of the things that actually kind of bothered me about the movie. think he played up his back issues way too much. Like I thought maybe, because Ted Bundy would pretend his arm was hurt. I thought it was something like that, and he was just gonna, like near the end, he was just gonna be like upright, back, not a problem at all. But his back hurt him throughout the whole movie, and I think they just exaggerated it too much in some scenes.
Yeah, kind of when he chooses the woman he's gonna murder, and he goes into her house, and she's sleeping on the couch, and then right as she wakes up, he's like, "Oh, my back! I pulled something coming in here. Like, can you grab my bag for me?" Like, it was just like, okay.
Like that could have, even in that scene, I couldn't really tell if
I thought he was doing that, I don't know, for sympathy or something like that.
Me too.
But he just like actually had a bad back.
Yeah, because he pulls it or something like that, and I don't know. I just thought scenes in the beginning too, where it's like he doesn't have to act like he has a bad back around his family necessarily, but he does anyway. So that kind of tells me he does have a bad back. But it's one of those things where in movies it's so hard to act like you have a bad back, because like he was lifting stuff, and you could tell he's acting. And I'm like, whatever. I'll just. It takes me out of the movie a tiny bit, but not a huge amount. It's like when people lift things in a movie that are supposed to be really heavy, but you could tell they're not. Like you can just sense they're not really straining their body. Like I got the same thing out of the back thing. Like whenever he would lift things as if he has a bad back, you could tell he was like just trying, and you're like, come on. Just stop.
I'm trying to think what else should I say something I didn't really like about the movie?
I want to keep talking about the good things for now, because I still have a couple things I wanted to talk about.
Okay, what are they?
So one of the twists is that you pretty much find out it's not the brother. It is his dad that's the killer. And then another twist right after that, you find out the son didn't actually go to the camp, that he kind of stayed back. He took the bus to wherever and then walked back to that girl's house who was helping him investigate and stuff, and he has a crush on. And they pretty much spy on their dad, on his dad, not their dad. They spy on their dad and realize that he's stalking somebody, and you're like, oh shit, that's the girl he's going to murder. And it's that big lady we were talking about earlier. And then while he's in the room, while the dad's in the room, like the girl's tied up and he puts a bag over her head. He takes a picture, and you see his son come out from the door frame behind him with a gun. And that's kind of like a big moment where you're like, what the hell? I wasn't expecting that at all. Like, he's supposed to be away. And you don't know that the son did all that stuff until after. They have like a flashback, and they're like, okay, now let's follow what the son did. But in the moment where you see him coming out from the door frame, you're like, oh, holy shit.
I was like, how did you know he was going to be at that house?
Right. And then he doesn't shoot his dad, because obviously his dad goes into manipulation mode again and is like, no, son, we're having an affair. And your mother knows all about it, blah, blah, blah. It's not what it looks like. And the son lowers his gun, and then the girl that's with him like sees the dad's gun on the drawer or whatever, and just is like, fuck it, and goes for it. And then the dad grabs her head and like slams it into the wall and knocks her out. And you're like, oh my God. And then he even manipulates that situation and is like, no, it's just because I knew she was going to grab the gun, and she doesn't know gun safety like you and I. She would have hurt somebody on accident or by accident. And then the son starts handing over the rifle that he has to the dad, and you're kind of like, oh my God, I can't, like, the son's really falling for this, even though it's so obvious that it's the dad. Hands the dad the gun, and the dad's like, you made the right decision, I'm proud of you, and then points the gun at his fucking son and like pulls a trigger, and it clicks because there's no ammo. And you're like, holy shit, this dude was about to just like murder his son. Which, that's the moment I realized he doesn't care about his family. They're just like an asset. So he he does that, and then like freaking goes to choke out his son, and like they fight. And he's on the ground like getting choked by his dad. I'm like, this is so intense. And then obviously, what is it called? Ex Machina the other girl just happens to like gain consciousness in the right time and hits the dad with the lamp. And I'm just like, that's insane. And that's still not even the final twist. Like, they just keep hitting you with twist after twist. And the final twist is when you expect the girl's about to call 911 and the son like shakes his head and he's like, no. And then it just cuts to the family without the dad, and there's like a missing poster on the dad, and you're like, what the hell did they do with the dad? And eventually you find out that I guess they dragged his unconscious body with a tarp in the middle of the woods, set up a whole campsite, and waited for him to wake up because he wasn't dead. He was just unconscious this whole time, I guess, which I thought was a little convenient. And then they like make it look like he kills himself by shooting him in the head with a pistol. Even though they don't show it, it's assumed that they made it look like a suicide. And then it just kind of ends with that. There's no like resolution after that. Like the kids aren't caught. It's just like it ends with, oh, everyone thinks the dad committed suicide. Everyone's sad. That's kind of like the final twist. As you think either they killed the dad like at the house, but it's kind of vague, and then you find out that's what happened. And I just thought it was like so well done. Oh man. Like that's a twist I like. Cuz you think you're not going to find out it's the dad until the end, and that's going to be the twist. That'd be a super cliche twist. But no, they throw like a bunch of other things at you.
I just don't know how believable it is that two high schoolers could get away with all that. Do you think they're really never going to find any evidence that they had anything to do with killing the dad and setting up that whole murder? Because especially with the gun thing, like police know what to look for with trajectory and if it's actually a suicide. Like they've had people who've, put the gun in someone else's hand and tried to shoot them, so it made it look like it was a suicide just from the angle that the bullet was going. So like I don't know how believable like them getting away with it actually is. And also the woman who the dad was in the process of killing, he had her tied up, he put a bag around her head. Did she not see or hear the kids at all?
I don't think so, because
she was out of it.
She was already unconscious when the girl took the bag off her head. And then they must have gotten rid of the dad before she actually like woke up.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, if you think about it, like they already said she didn't see the dad's face, so she doesn't know who that was. She didn't see the kids, and she was laying on the ground next to the bed, so she didn't see him like go down. She didn't see any of that stuff. She probably just woke up and realized he was gone, and she might still think it was just a bank robber, because that's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
For the listeners, when the dad first broke into the lady's house, he pretended to be a bank robber, and that he just needed to tie her up just so she couldn't like get away. So I was thinking about that too at the end of the movie, like, well, wait, what about the woman that got tied up? Wouldn't she do something? But I agree with you. I don't think it was that believable that they could have gotten away with something like that.
Because now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember exactly what happened, but when the girl took off the bag from the lady's head, you saw her face, but I don't remember if she was awake or not.
No, her eyes were closed.
It still kind of looked like she was, like she wasn't totally out of it though. I'd have to watch it back, but it didn't seem like that.
Because she wasn't moving anymore. She was like screaming or yelping, whatever it was, and then her body wasn't moving when the son came in with the rifle. That's why he was like, is she okay? Because he couldn't tell if she was actually dead or not. So when she took the bag off, her head was kind of like moving a little bit, but her eyes were closed. So you're like, okay, she's unconscious, but she's alive. But if you want to jump into things we didn't like about it, we can now.
Well, that was one thing that I wasn't totally convinced by, just them getting away with that murder.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole setting up the campsite. I mean, I know how thorough investigations into murders are for the most part, so it seems like they would have picked up on something, but they were minors, so sometimes that can help with investigations. Like the mom at the end said the police wanted to talk to the son, but she said no. So one thing I wasn't a huge fan of was just the cliche odd girl who was a ginger, of course, who would, sit by the the recycling bins behind the church.
Yep.
Who people are like, oh, she's so weird. What's she doing here? And then, of course, the son, the main character, has to link up with her in order to solve this mystery. So to me, that just seemed like kind of cliche because it seems like there's always some weird person who ends up teaming up with someone unexpected in order to help them out. And then they end up, oh, we actually like each other. You're not as weird as I thought you were, kind of a thing.
And she happens to be like the opposite of him in the beginning.
Yeah.
And of course, they're opposites, so they have to like work through their differences and work together on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little cliche. I agree.
And it was lucky for him that this girl, how did she get all those documents? She had tons of documents from the crime scenes and stuff.
They said she's the one that said her mom was the one that got killed. Mm-hmm. Or she figured out herself that her mom got killed because her dad didn't tell her. The old lady lives there. She's the one that was writing a book on the Clovehitch Killer. So she got copies of all the evidence and stuff from the police. Because you can do that sometimes. Like, I don't know how long it had been like 10 years, right? Since the murders. I'm not a cop. I don't know how all that stuff works. But I believe after a certain amount of time, that kind of stuff goes into like...
Public?
I think.
Records or something?
Something like that. But I know because look at the Zodiac, that movie. Mm-hmm. He was able to do the same thing. Like, he convinced the cops to go and look through all the evidence, stuff like that. So I know there is a way that you can do that. That's the only reason they had all the evidence, because that old lady wrote the book on it and got copies of all that stuff. And that's probably why the girl...
But how was she related to that old woman?
No,
why did they live together?
Because the old lady probably knew that the daughter's mom was killed and that she wanted to do all this research.
Oh, okay.
So she probably just let her live there.
But it just seemed very helpful that he happened to have this girl who had so much information about the case.
Like, I can understand the girl living there, like living around in the same neighborhood, because obviously the Clovehitch Killer wanted to stay within a certain area. Mm-hmm. But it was a little convenient that the lady who wrote the book on it lived in the same neighborhood too. I mean, I guess, yeah, maybe it does make a little sense, because who would be more interested in it than somebody that lives in the neighborhood and lived through it? So I could see her doing that, but it was just still a little too convenient, you know, like.
It just made it seem like the son, when he started figuring stuff out, it was too easy for him to automatically find somebody who had tons of information and could help him right away. Do you know what I mean? It's like he didn't really have to... I feel like in a normal situation, you would have to do a lot more.
Yeah, she did so much work behind the scenes, too.
Yeah, so it's like he just got all this information and help from somebody right away.
Yeah, the two things that he really had to work for was getting into the crawl space to find that information out, and then the shed.
Yeah. And
then after that, all the info was like just given to him from the girl. Like, he didn't really have to work for it. Mm-hmm. There was really no tension in those scenes. I do think it would have been more interesting if that girl wasn't even in the movie.
Yeah, I think it would have had less cliche of the weird girl who was obsessed with the murders if it was just the son. Because think about if you were that kid and you thought your dad was that serial killer, you'd probably feel so isolated and alone, like you couldn't talk to anybody about it. And what are the odds that there would be somebody in your town who's your age, who you see all the time, who happens to know tons about the case?
Yeah, I do think it would have made a more interesting movie if it was just the son figuring everything out. Mm-hmm. And even, like, without the police documents. Like, if he had just researched the stuff on his own and came up with the conclusion, and then maybe he was still on the fence, and then he saw his dad do something that would, like, really tipped him off. I think it was too convenient having that girl, like... Because even the son was kind of convinced after that camping trip that it was his uncle. And then it was the girl that came back and was like, you said the word lucky, and that's how I know it's your dad. And then it kind of brought him back where he was like, okay, yeah, maybe it was my dad. So it was like way too convenient that even when he was kind of done researching it, she came back and was like, no, you were right.
Yeah, they could have had him believing, okay, maybe it was my uncle who's the killer, not my dad. And then something else happened that kind of tipped him off, like, this still doesn't feel right. And then he went into tracking his dad on GPS, figuring out where he was going and stalking that woman.
But babe, who would have been there to knock him out when he was choking the son out?
Yeah, there's certain things she needed to be there for. Also, the like teenage romance. You need that in the movie, I guess, for some people.
That was kind of annoying. It like didn't even have a payoff.
Yeah.
She like kisses the son. She like kisses him and is like, that's her way of getting him into that house with her. Mm-hmm. And he was like upset that that's that she used him for that. And you think there's going to be this like hidden romance in the end, and they're going to just like finally really kiss and then do something, but they don't even do that. So I was like, did you really need to have that romance in there? You couldn't just have her be like this outsider chick that they work together and that's it.
Because they needed her because her mom had been killed by the Clovehitch Killer. His dad was the Clovehitch Killer. So bringing them together, I guess, is what people want to see. But yeah, I think her role was probably unnecessary. It probably would have been more work to write the movie without her, but they could have done it.
They probably just thought about that one scene where the son's getting choked and like, guys, I don't think this is going to work. I think it's not realistic for him to overpower his dad. Mm-hmm. So we have to have somebody there to like hit him back. So they probably just like retcon everything else. They're just like, oh, well, let's just write somebody in last minute.
Because if they had the unconscious woman wake up and hit the dad over the head, I guess she would have known too much.
Yeah, but she was all tied up. There's no way she was getting out of that.
I don't know. Weirder things have happened in movies. We're just trying to get around not having that girl in there.
I know. I was already expecting the son to somehow overpower the dad, and I was waiting for it, and I was like, no, I don't see it happening. And then the second you said, oh, the girl's going to wake up and hit him, I was like, yep, I think that is what they're going to do.
Because there's no way, because his son was almost unconscious.
Yeah.
Or dead.
Whatever. You would have thought that the dad, being as tedious and paranoid as he is, that he would expect the girl to wake up like that.
Yeah, I know.
But he didn't. So that did bother me a little bit.
Also, the son, before he finds his dad in the house murdering that woman, he installs a GPS tracker onto his dad's phone. If someone did that, do you think you'd be able to tell?
I probably would.
Is it like an app or something? I mean, it just seemed...
Yeah, it was. It was like literally GPS tracking app.
It just seems like his dad would have found that. He did leave. The dad left his phone behind when he went to kill that woman. But I don't know if that was the reason.
I don't think so. I think
just left it so it wasn't in the way or something.
Because he left it there, but it wasn't suspicious that anyone was following him.
Yeah.
So I think it was just one of those dad things where he was just like, I'm going to leave whatever makes me at home, because that's like, I'm a separate person now going and taking care of this murder. I can buy that he didn't notice the app given his like age. Like people like that tend to not really know what's going on with their phone, especially a smartphone like that. He probably doesn't go through and like notice new apps on his phone.
Yeah, maybe.
So I kind of bought that, and I bought him leaving it there. Like it just made sense to me with his character.
And after doing a little more research, it's very clear that they took inspiration from the BTK killer.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't even realize that the BTK killer was a Boy Scout leader or had something to do with the Boy Scouts. There was that. He was super religious. The all-American dad type of person who ended up being a serial killer. So
his love for the bondage too. Him doing it to himself. He did it a few times.
So yeah, I kind of like that they took inspiration from a real life person in order to do it. And also it reminded me, like the whole shed thing. The whole shed thing seemed a little cliche to me. Just like, if there's a locked shed, there's going to be something weird in there. But of course, that's where he kept all this stuff under the floorboards, which is kind of reminiscent of that movie I was telling you about by Stephen King. I think it's called A Good Marriage, where the woman is married to this man who ends up being a serial killer, and he keeps all his weird momentum like in the garage or something. So it just seemed kind of like, I don't know where else he would have kept it, but it seems like just in the locked shed is so obvious to keep your serial killer
Yeah.
stuff.
One thing I did like about that scene, not the scene where he goes into the shed, but when the dad goes to the shed and realizes his son went in there or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the subtlety that this movie does, where basically the way you find out that the dad knows something was up is because he just goes up to the combination lock and realizes that it's not on 0 and like rolls it over to 0, and that tells you as an audience, oh, he usually keeps it on 0 so he can tell if somebody was messing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't leave it on 0. That's like so subtle. Like it tells us so much without actually him being like, well, son, I always keep the lock combination on 0 and it wasn't on 0.
Yeah.
Instead of telling you, they just show you. Like I love when movies do that. That's like good filmmaking in my eyes.
Yeah, no, that was a good scene too.
And no cheap jump scares in the whole entire movie.
Yeah, I don't think there were any jump scares.
Not a single one. It was still like, I wouldn't say it was a scary movie, but it was definitely like,
A thriller.
yeah, it was definitely on edge.
Yeah, it was
a lot of
creepy.
scenes. 'Cause like, just seeing it from the son's perspective, like walking in on his dad doing this to this woman, and the dad being like, oh, we're just having an affair, and he's still acting all dad-like.
And he didn't even he looked shocked. He was like, son, what are you doing here? You should be at camp.
Yeah, he was just chill.
But he wasn't even in that much shock, which I think just shows his lack of, what is that? Lack of emotional, I can't think of the word. He's out of touch with reality, kind of.
Yeah, he's just a sociopath, lives in his own.
He's like, oh, son,
narcissistic sociopath.
this isn't what you think it is. I'm having an affair with this woman.
Yeah, it's just so eerie. Like
He just thought of that right away.
such a predator. He really played that well.
I think the part when he tries to shoot his son and then it's blank, that was a really good scene too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like so many twists.
Because I was expecting, when his son handed over the gun to the dad, I was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
I'm like, and then the guy starts pointing the gun, and I was like, I was trying to think in my head while it was happening, like, what's going to happen? Is he really going to shoot his son?
I thought he was.
I kind of thought he was too.
I thought he was going to shoot him, and then it was just going to keep going on from, like, the girl's perspective. Because they have no problem changing perspectives. Like, when the son supposedly goes on the trip, they follow the dad for a while.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So they're definitely comfortable going to a different person's point of view. So I'm like, yeah, you could definitely just shoot the son right now and then continue on, and then that's it. I really thought he was going to shoot him. And then when it clicked, I was like, oh my God, the son totally played him.
Yeah.
Like he knew that was going to happen. Or maybe he didn't know that was going to happen. He was just going in trying to threaten his dad, but not actually wanting to shoot him. So
That's
maybe
kind of what it seemed like.
when he was asked to hand over the gun, he was probably just like, oh yeah, whatever. It's not loaded.
And that could have also just been a test. Like, okay, I'm going to hand this gun over. And if he doesn't try to shoot me, then maybe it's not as bad as it seems or
Yeah.
something. Because when he walked into the room, wasn't he like, Dad, we have to go to the police? Or he's like, yeah, you have to turn yourself in or something.
Yeah.
So he was trying to work with his dad.
Well,
But then at the end of the movie, you see the son getting some sort of honorary sash from the Boy Scouts. And he's giving a little speech about how his dad was a great man and a provider. Then he ends it with, I love you, which is kind of, it's like so sad because there are so many children of serial killers who, even though they know what their parents did, they still obviously love their parents. It's
Yeah.
really hard for them to see them as a serial killer, but then also know them as a parent.
especially the son going through that experience of actually seeing his dad.
Yeah.
In the
Walking in
act.
on it.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah, I could definitely I could see the emotion in that kid's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, such a good actor. And then I like how they interweaved, like, his speech with what they actually ended up doing with the dad's body.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, dragging him out and doing that stuff.
And it's basically just him and that girl that know the whole story. He didn't tell his mom or anything.
Right.
So he just has to kind of keep that to himself, that his dad was actually that guy, and he didn't commit suicide.
It did bother me a little bit because I realized he was gonna commit the murder during the day, and you see them dragging the dad's body at night in the woods.
They must have just waited, I guess.
But I'm like, so what? Was he unconscious that whole time? And then what about that lady? She would have had to be unconscious for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dad happened to gain consciousness when they sat him up in the chair and pointed the gun at his face. Like, that was a little convenient. But
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Well, I thought it was when they were propping the dad up in the camping chair before they were about to shoot him, how he was kind of like looking at them.
I thought he was going to say something like, "It's okay, son," or "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
But no, he didn't even say anything.
Come up with another lie.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm like, oh,
I was
maybe
testing you about gun safety when I shot you.
I'm so proud of you, son. Yeah. No, I really thought they were going to pull one of those. The dad realizes that this needs to happen.
Oh, like he knows he's not going to be able to stop killing.
Yeah.
So just shoot me.
That's what I thought. But I guess it's still in character that he was just kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but whatever. That didn't really bother me too much. It didn't pull me out.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I did really like this movie a lot. The composition, like the shots, the cinematography, I thought wasn't like award worthy, but it was definitely interesting, and I could see what emotions they were going for with some of the shots. Like, it was just amazing to me. And the storytelling I thought was really well done. Like I was saying, they really didn't have to tell you much. They just showed you everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure stuff out with the characters. Because I don't like when movies have to just explain everything to you. And you're like, I'm not stupid. Like, I can figure stuff out by seeing it too.
I like the pacing of the movie too. I didn't think it was too rushed, so you felt like this like is unrealistic that it's happening like this. But it wasn't so overdrawn, and it wasn't boring at all, I don't think. And then there's also, in that one review they talked about it, there's that classic dip that happens in the movie where things kind of like go to a lull and then it climaxes.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of that like faux point where he goes off to camp and he's like, he thinks his dad might not be it. That's what you're led to believe. But then he's actually like the whole time he's at camp, he's investigating his dad. So it's kind of like interesting how they did that.
And I like that this is the first time you see the dad actually doing something.
Yeah.
Like, it's not... If they had already shown it before in the movie and then we're doing it now, I think it would have felt like it was dragging on.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's the first time you really see the dad, like, going all into being the Clovehitch Killer again, you're so tense the whole time because you're like, when is he going to just kill the lady? Or, like, when is he going to do this? He just takes his time with it. And it's so chill. So you're just, like, on the edge of your seat, like, what the hell is he going to do now?
It was also creepy when the weird girl shows up at the house and the dad's alone doing that weird stuff. But he answers the door. He puts his normal clothes on and he answers the door. And she's just alone in the house with him. And he's like, let me take your picture. Like, he was just acting, like, so off. It was creepy.
Well, you think that she's alone in the house.
Yeah, you don't
But
at
really
the point when you think she's alone.
Yeah, you find out the son's actually there too, and he texts her like help, so that's when she rings the doorbell and goes and talks to him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is really creepy seeing him switch, like, from taking pictures of himself in women's clothes to he's just acting like the typical dad again. Even though you know now that he's like this killer.
Mm-hmm.
It is really creepy. But I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so did I.
Even with the negatives we talked about, it still doesn't... Like, that's probably the only thing keeping it from being a 10 out of 10 for me. And just the fact that it's not... Like, the story itself isn't too creative.
I feel like now serial killer movies, it's so hard to make them different.
Yeah.
Because there have been so many of them.
I still think having the perspective of the son figuring out his dad is a serial killer, I think that's an interesting take.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still the same story, just told different, like from a different angle. So I can't give it too many points for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think still after talking about it, I'm still holding at an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I still hold that at a 7.5.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this. I am glad that it's not typical horror movie and follows like jump scares and all these other crap. I think it plays it out really well. The tension's built up very well with the story. It's earned.
I'm pretty sure there weren't any of those loud noises that annoyed us with it.
Yeah, not at all.
There weren't any like big like loud noises that you're like, oh no, something scary is gonna happen. 'Cause
Right.
that's always annoying. Pretty sure there weren't any of those.
I don't even think they were leading up to that.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the typical like build up with violins, like, and then the payoff jump scare.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have that. Like they didn't tease you like, oh, it's gonna be a jump scare. It was just. I don't think there's any point in the movie where I was thinking there's gonna be a jump scare coming up.
The only part was in the shed, which I suspected from the beginning when he's looking through the stuff at night. I figured like, well, he did hear a noise which startled him, but it wasn't scary to the audience. But I figured like maybe his dad was gonna, I don't know, something might have scared you in that point, but it didn't.
See, even at that point, I wasn't thinking there was gonna be a jump scare. I figured if anything, he was gonna put the stuff away quickly and then get up and just look over, and his dad was gonna be there.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, "What are you doing, bud?" Because he kept calling his son Bud. Typical dad. But I'm like, no, they didn't even do that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was nice. They didn't need anything like that. They didn't need jump scares. Like all the tension was already there in the plot. And that's what I was talking about with the It when we reviewed that. I was saying that you can build tension and make things scary without like a jump scare. Like you can make things scary with the plot alone and like what the audience knows. So us as the audience knows all this stuff about the dad. So when the dad talks to the son, there's tension there, even though there's technically no tension in the dialogue itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see anything that would be tense. It's just what we know that makes the scene tense. And I think they did that well with this movie.
And even in the part when he is giving his son the talk in the shed and he hands his son a soda from his little refrigerator and he's like, it's our secret or something. That's kind of like alluding to they have more than one secret together.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of like foreshadowing.
I thought he was going to hand him a beer. I'm like, why is a soda secret?
Yeah, me too.
I guess his mom doesn't want him to drink
Cherry cola. Like, wow. Really splurging here.
Yeah.
I did think he was going to hand him a beer too. I'm like, wait, is it beer? Even though I already saw it said cherry cola. I guess from our points of view, from our lives, we're like, how is that? Like, that's nothing.
Unless he was joking, but it didn't seem like a joke.
Right.
I don't know.
And he had all his sodas hidden away in the crawl space too.
Yeah, I'm sure he just goes down there and hangs out and looks at his stuff.
I thought that was funny. And the dead raccoon,
Yeah.
which he probably killed, but they don't really know. Like the raccoon could have just gotten in there.
Yeah, because when the son first goes into the crawl space and he opens that little, he like moves that wood to open that little opening and he smells something terrible. So you think, oh God, my dad killed someone. He shoved their body down there. But it was just a dead raccoon.
Well, I thought he was already going to have this huge thing built that he had in the blueprints.
Yeah.
There's going to be bodies down there. But then you're like, oh, yeah, it really is just a fantasy. Like he wishes he could do all this crazy stuff, but he can't. And then even when they told his family to go away, I thought, oh, maybe he's just going to build part of that in the basement. But no, it was just so he could go kill someone.
Yeah.
But I liked the scene where he's trying to have sex with his wife and he just can't because that's not what turns him on. Like what turns him on is the bondage and the killing of the girl. So he just can't do anything in the bedroom.
And it was interesting also how he picked the woman who he wanted to kill because he kind of just saw her in the grocery store and something about her appealed to him.
Yeah.
Because even though usually serial killers, sometimes they'll have a certain profile they look for in their victims, but it's just like you just see someone and you're like, that's it, which is creepy because he just saw her in the grocery store and he kept staring at her.
Yeah, he helped her out with something.
He
had,
got
an
her a
actual
bag of
interaction.
vegetables or something.
Yeah. I thought that was so creepy.
Because it's like, to a normal person, it's like, what about her did he find interesting or something? But that's not the point. The point is that he just wanted someone to go after and she was there.
Yeah, so I guess, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I would recommend it.
Yeah.
I thought the acting was good. And even though the story was kind of, so many people have done it, it was still a good movie.
I think so too. like I said, I like having actors that I don't know because then I believe the characters more instead of me sitting there like, oh yeah, that's that person from this movie. Definitely helps me believe the characters more. I wouldn't mind seeing these. I say all the actors, but I don't really count like the wife and the daughter because they really don't do anything.
Especially the daughter. She was like
Yeah.
7 or something.
Child actors are like hit or miss.
Yeah, she didn't really have a big part.
But I didn't really pay attention to her.
Yeah.
The one scene with the mom talking to the son about the police, I thought that was a good scene. I thought she did well in that. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't know what she's going to say. It's kind of like, that scene's tense because you think they're going to, like, you think the police want to talk to the son because they're suspicious of him doing something to the dad. Mm-hmm. So that's why the mom's like, they don't think that, what'd they say? They don't, I'm trying to remember. It's her telling the son that they found the body.
Oh, she was like, they don't think it was an accident.
Yeah, and the son was like, oh shit. Like
He was like, they think he was
they
murdered?
think he was murdered, and he's like, oh man, they're on to me. And she was like, oh no. And she doesn't say it, but they make you assume that she's talking about, oh, they think he committed suicide. And then he was like, oh. And then she starts crying, and you're like, okay, that's a good scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would recommend this movie too. It's kind of refreshing that there are movies now. Even though it was made a year ago, it's still recent. I mean, I like that there's movies being made like this now. And I think it definitely is because it's more of an independent thing and not like a big Hollywood picture.
Yeah, I would have those noises no matter what
Yeah, I can't stand that.
to keep the audience hooked.
But I thought it was done really well. I wouldn't mind watching it again, knowing what we know now, seeing if we notice anything different. Like subtleties in the dad or something like that. Mm-hmm. But no, I'm glad in our third episode we watched a movie that was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
We're not on a bad streak. One alright movie, one horrible movie, and then a pretty good movie. So I wonder what our next movie is gonna be. Kind of nervous.
I feel like we should find a movie that we've actually heard of but never seen.
Yeah. I wanna find a movie that we're just not sure if it's gonna be good or bad. Like The First Summoning.
Or even a movie that people like. That people supposedly like The Conjuring or whatever. I mean, we've probably seen all those movies, but there's got to be something we haven't seen that we know that people think is scary.
Oh man, I would love to tear apart a movie that everyone thinks is like a good scary movie.
We should watch. Isn't The Conjuring supposed to be one of the scariest movies? That's what the Reddit.
It's what everyone on Reddit said.
I also want to watch Lake Mungo because that's supposed to be actually scary,
Oh
right?
yeah, I think it's Australian or something like that. Or New Zealand. I can't remember. Some Australian horror movie. Low budget. That's usually where it gets. That's usually the most creative things though. Like low budget horror movies.
Yeah, because you can't rely on stupid sound effects and CGI.
Yeah, they're like, shit, we actually have to be creative in our storytelling because that's all we have.
Yeah.
But maybe we should watch that next. Or put
Okay.
it on our list at least.
Okay.
Once we get a following of viewers, we could be like, vote on the next movie that we watch, but we can't even do that. The one person watching pretty much is going to dictate what we watch. But we'll figure it out. I think that's pretty much it for this episode, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we talked about everything we needed to say.
My mouth is literally so dry from talking about this movie so much. But I don't mind. I think it was worth it. Very good movie. Yep, we're about an hour and 5 minutes in. I think that's pretty good. It's a good place to end it, I think.
Too bad we don't have outro music. Just thought about that now. But yeah,
Oh, well.
that's good enough.
We can end it on these last few lines. Thanks, everybody, for your support. Without you, I don't know. We wouldn't be able to get to our third episode, even though
We'd probably still be doing it.
we'd still be doing it. Yeah. I hope people are listening to this now that are new fans after our 200th episode.
You and a
are
new
like,
girlfriend.
Yeah. I don't even think people know that we're dating. I think that it's assumed, but we never really explicitly said it. But yeah, we are dating. Yeah, they're gonna be on the 200th episode and be like, "Wow, these two are so cute together," and they're gonna come back to this episode and be like, "Who's this?" Or it might be me that's different. It might be you and some guy.
Oh boy.
They'll be like, "Wow, who was that original guy?" But yeah, I mean, regardless of how many people watch that, I really want to continue doing this. It's just fun for us to do.
It makes you think about movies more.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about movies anyway, but I don't think we actually go into this in depth.
When you actually need points to talk about.
Yeah, it's nice. But definitely thank you guys for listening all the way into episode 3. Or if this is the first episode you're ever listening to, thanks for listening to us. We are the Blair Witch Podcast, and this has been episode 3, the Clovehitch Killer. Definitely go check it out. Alexandra, you have any final points before we end this?
Goodbye.
Just like that, guys. All right. Goodbye.